So this week, Doomsday Clock number 12 was released. The big finale to the giant, massive storyline that had been building up at DC for, I don't know, 7 years at this point. It's been a while. There's been a lot of delays. I've heard people make fun of the delays on this book by saying, oh, that Watchmen show came to a finale before Doomsday Clock came to a finale. That's not the half of it. You wanna know how many times this has been delayed? That Watchmen show began after issue 11. The entire length of that Watchmen show started and ended in between issues 11 and 12 of this Watchmen comic. That's how much it has been delayed. So, was it worth the wait? Was it worth the hype? Well, you guys know me. You know that I have been enjoying this book. I actually was completely behind the idea of the book. I know a lot of people out there were very much opposed to the idea of this, and I understand why. I mean, the big revelation that DC was altered, their entire universe was changed by Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen universe coming over and him manipulating this world. I understand people being upset about that because the Watchmen comics, they're one of those things that a lot of people point at and go, yeah, man, just leave it over there. That shouldn't continue. It should just be its own thing. Plus, how many times are you gonna screw over Alan Moore and keep altering the thing that he created, DC? Yeah, I understand people being upset about that. However, the New 52 universe over at DC, it was darker, it was grimmer, and the reason for that was because a lot of the guys behind the scenes at DC said, we need to make our comics darker and grimmer. And the reason why people think comics should be darker and grimmer is because back in the 80s, Watchmen came around and made everyone go, oh, this is what all comic books should be like now. And that's what led into the big, dark, grim craze of the 80s and 90s. So, yes, I understand why they needed to have Dr. Manhattan be the one who came in here and alter the DC universe. It was a metaphor for what Watchmen did to the DC universe and comics in general. So yeah, I was 100% behind this. I think that speaking in a metaphorical sense, and this being a message about the overall landscape of comic books, I think it was a great thing to do. That being said, I was so hesitant going into issue 12 because this thing started off and had so much potential, and then it got delayed and delayed and delayed, and eventually there came a point where after it started getting delayed enough times and you started looking around at what else was going on at DC at the time, you had to eventually face the fact that, oh, this is not entirely what we were originally going to get. Something was altered in here. Something had to be changed. Like, this isn't just the artist needed extra time to finish a book. No. They had to rewrite some stuff. There came that point where I had to realize, oh, Dr. Manhattan isn't the only one who tampered with some stuff in this book. Yeah, something came in from outside and messed around with this a little bit, and it is always going to bum me out that we never got to see what the original intent was, but when you got to issue number 12, it really did sink in, oh, the important stuff, the meat of this, the thing they were still going for, the big messages they were trying to have, the big giant splash page of, oh my goodness, look at this, that was still there. All the important stuff is still there. Yes, stuff was altered at one point in time. However, with what they had left, they still turned out something amazing. They still took whatever they could still use and was able to make the biggest, most impressive thing they could possibly have turned out with it. It's kind of like if you're trying to prepare Thanksgiving dinner, but then, I don't know, your lazy cousin comes into the kitchen when no one's looking and he just snacks on some stuff that you were saving for later for your special ingredients, and now all of a sudden it looks like Thanksgiving dinner is ruined, but then you just roll up your sleeves and go, nope, time to crank out the best Thanksgiving dinner ever. That's kind of what this was. It was one of those Thanksgiving dinners that was so good that if you were unaware of the other stuff that happened, you would never even have noticed. So yeah, before we actually get into all this and talk about what happened in this issue, which, yes, we are going to go into spoilers on this thing because, let's be real, normally I try and hide spoilers so I can encourage people to buy good books, but it's Doomsday Clock. Is there anybody out there who is vaguely interested in Doomsday Clock who isn't already reading Doomsday Clock? You've all already read this issue. You all already know what happened. So yes, we are going to get into spoilers. But before we get into that, as I said, going into this, I was super hesitant. In fact, when issue number 11 came out, that was kind of my breaking point. Because with every single issue that came out, I kept looking at it going, okay, so, like, is this thing going to, no, that's not coming up, and okay, well, now we're on this, but that really seems like it need a little bit more, no, we're just on it, okay, alright, fine. That kept building up a little bit more with each issue. Issue number 11 was that issue where I went, okay, I gotta talk about this. So we actually did a Patreon video where I just talked about all my concerns with Doomsday Clock. And in that video, I kept constantly saying, but it can still turn around, it can still turn around, and I'm so happy that it did all turn around. But I just want to go ahead and share with you guys what some of the stuff is I'm talking about when I say, yeah, this stuff was altered in here. One of the things that I'm talking about is that the big promise of this book was that it was taking place in the future, like a year in the future, and by the time that this wrapped up, all the other books out there at DC were going to catch up to this point. So a lot of the story elements that you saw in here were going to start being built up in other books out there. So then, all those other books with the story elements that they were building up were going to come to a head at the exact same time that issue number 12 came out. So that way, as soon as you read all those other books leading up to this, you could then go back and start issue number 1 of Doomsday Clock and go all the way up to this. That was the promise of this. None of that happened. None of that happened because there were so many delays. All the elements in this story that were supposed to kind of be built up and hinted at in other books just didn't. Nope. Yeah, sorry, man. I'm not going to stop the story that I'm telling in my book so I can start telling the story that needs to lead up to your book when I have no idea when your book is coming out. Hey man, that's actually an understandable thing. All the other writers out there, they got things they want to tell, and they might have been willing at one point in time to build up all the stuff that was necessary to lead into Doomsday Clock, but if you don't know when Doomsday Clock is going to end, how do you know when to start implementing those story elements? Yeah, I understand. It's a shame. It would have been cool to see how that played out, and who knows what other elements were supposed to be in this storyline that were going to be hinted at in other storylines, but hey man, that's the big what if out there. That's the big thing that we'll never know exactly how that was supposed to play out, but hey man, in the end, it was still pretty good, the story elements that they had here. There are still some questions that I have. There are still some things like the whole Superman initiative, Superman project, the whole thing about the government's creating superhumans. That's something that really needed to get fleshed out. That's something that needed way more attention, and yeah, it just really didn't get much attention because you can tell it's one of those things that was supposed to be built up in other books and just wasn't. But hey man, it's still fine. It's still alright. It worked well enough. And in the end, it wasn't that important to the overall story of this whole thing. It was kind of just meant to be a thing in there that made people distrust superhumans. And you know what? It worked. It was fine. It worked just fine for that. Another thing that I keep looking at this just going, you know there was supposed to be more in here, which the whole story elements built up in other books, that's something they promised us. That's something they told us was going to be happening, and it just did. This one here is total conspiracy theory. I will totally admit, I am not basing this on anything that anybody said. Just kind of on a real big gut feeling, but Wally! Where's Wally? That is something that I kept asking throughout this entire book. Where the heck is Wally West? Because Wally West was kind of the central figure that kicked all this off. He was the one that brought about Rebirth. He was this one he was like the one character in DC who knew that Dr. Manhattan was messing with stuff. That Dr. Manhattan was changing stuff. He saw him. He knows this was happening. So now, he was the one that broke back into our reality. He's the one who was actually giving people their memories back. If you touch this guy, it breaks Dr. Manhattan's spell on you and you get all your memories back. That's kind of a huge deal. So, yeah. Where the hell was he in this entire storyline? Like, he's got 2 panels. He's got one panel where he popped up real quick in that issue where Dr. Manhattan was manipulating time, which was a great issue, by the way. But he popped up in there for like one panel to go, you'll never get away with this. Just writing right back across the screen. Just, I'm only here for one panel, that's all the Dan DiDio will allow me to be in. Yeah, that was it. He was just there to go, stop, okay, no, whatever. That was it. And then another one in which they showed the big giant moment from Rebirth where he returned, but it was from Lex Luthor's point of view. And Lex was just like, guess something's happening over there. Anyway, that's not important to this story at all. None at all. Zip. Not gonna touch on that at all. Yeah, listen. We all know how Dan DiDio feels about Wally West. And we all know how Jeff Johns feels about Wally West. And we all know that Jeff Johns loves Wally West. And Dan DiDio hates Wally West. And back when Rebirth began, Jeff Johns, he was in kind of a managerial position over at DC, so he could fight back against Dan DiDio. He could come in there and say, listen, we got rid of Wally West because you want him gone. I want him back. The New 52 is completely screwed. We need to get people back in here. Just back away. Let me do what I want to do. And I promise you, we will bring people back. And he did. And he brought people back. And Wally West returned to comics. And people were so excited about that. And then Jeff Johns stepped down from his position over at DC to just go back to being a regular writer over at DC. And I remember when that announcement was made, one of my very first thoughts was, oh, bye, Wally. Oh, bye. Oh, this is sad. Oh, we just got you back. Because Dan DiDio has tried to kill Wally West off about 3 or 4 times that I can think of just off the top of my head. So yeah, I remember looking at this just going, oh, Wally. Wally's in trouble. And literally like the first thing that happened after Jeff Johns stepped down is that Heroes in Crisis got made. And in that book, Wally West ended up basically accidentally killing a bunch of superheroes, and he got put in jail for it. In a way that's kind of almost worse than just killing him off again, because if you kill him off again, we can just bring him back to life again. We've done it like 5 times at this point, but yeah. So they just did that with Wally and locked him in a cell, and now he's not involved in the storyline anymore. This thing that really feels like he was supposed to be a much larger part of the story, he just isn't anymore. And again, this is not me saying I know for a fact that he was supposed to be a big part of this storyline. It's me saying it really feels like he was supposed to be a big part of this storyline. I can't prove it, but it really feels like he was supposed to play an important role in all this. And because of what we know about the stuff that goes on behind the scenes and how we know certain people over there in charge now feel about Wally West, it kind of feels like that tampered with what the overall story of this was going to end up being. And I really do want to know, what the heck was Wally supposed to do? Like, don't get me wrong, all of this was always going to come down to Superman. Superman was always going to be the central point of this. But man, it really feels like Wally was supposed to play a role in here as well. I can't help but notice that as soon as Heroes in Crisis started coming around, that's when these delays started getting bigger and bigger in between issues. So, yeah, again, I will fully admit this is pure, flat-out conspiracy theory territory on this one, but it's going to be one of those things that I'm always going to wonder about. It's going to be one of those things that I'm always going to look at and be like, what could have been? However, I am not here talking about what ifs or what could have beens and other things that I know nothing about and in all honesty should not be talking about because that's incredibly irresponsible of me to do. No, we are here to talk about what happened in Doomsday Clock number 12. Now, when we last left these characters off, all these countries around the world were sending all their superhumans to Washington, D.C. to fight Superman because Superman was being blamed for this giant destructive thing that happened over in Russia. So now basically the entire world was trying to arrest Superman while everybody else around the world was descending into madness. Basically, the world was about to become the Watchmen universe, which when we last saw it was, destroyed because of hatred and bigotry and intolerance and prejudices and just paranoia and basically every negative emotion that you can feel, basically just ripped the entire universe apart. That was now happening to our universe as well. And Superman was there fighting off all these other superhumans, and Dr. Manhattan was just standing there. He appeared before Superman and just said, "This is it. I have seen the future. I have seen every future, and I know there is nothing after this point. After this moment, it is just darkness. Which means that either you kill me, or I fight back, and I kill everything. That is what is going to happen now." And Dr. Manhattan is just standing there, just waiting for Superman to fight him. Just waiting. And Superman, all these people are in danger because all these superhumans are fighting. So Superman is like, "Listen, man, help these people out." And Dr. Manhattan is just sitting there going, "No, I have seen the future. And in the future that I saw, I do not help anyone. So I will not help anyone because I'm a giant douche." Dr. Manhattan kind of continuing his streak of being the worst superhero. So Dr. Manhattan is just waiting there, and then he eventually goes, "Alright, this is the moment that I reveal to you. I'm the one who tampered with your universe, So I'm the reason that your parents died when you were at a young age. Yes, that didn't happen in the other realities. I altered that. Yes, it was all in me. I'm the one who did that. And then Superman, he gets that glowing energy in his eyes. He charges at Dr. Manhattan and punches another superhuman that was jumping up behind Dr. Manhattan. And Dr. Manhattan just stands there and goes, wait, what? No, you charged at me with your fists and the glowing eyes. That was the last thing I saw. Because you were going to fight me. Not punch someone, what? That's not, no. What's happening now? And Superman, he then tells him, listen, I don't know how to feel about what you just told me, but right now people need saving and you got a choice to make. And it's in that moment that Dr. Manhattan basically looks at Superman and goes, oh my God, I get it. Because there was that issue a couple issues ago where he discovered the entire metaverse, all realities, are based around Superman. They all sprung up from Superman, and it's actually just this brilliant issue where they just lay out every different incarnation of Superman that has ever existed and how reality keeps shifting around to make sure that there's always this Superman in a different reality, which in one way is supposed to be a metaphor for, all the realities that have been created in the DC universe, but it's also meant to kind of be an even bigger metaphor for comic books in general, because he didn't say, the multiverse, he said the metaverse, which when you think about it in those terms, that means all comics. And yeah, all comics kind of spring up from Superman. So yeah, I totally understand what they were saying there, and I love that message in there. So Dr. Manhattan, he now looks at Superman and he realizes the reason why all these different realities kept springing up around Superman is because Superman is the guiding beacon of hope. He is that thing that's supposed to guide all of us and make us all better and teach us to be better people, and all realities need that. They all need that person in it. And now Dr. Manhattan, the guy who came from the grim, dark Watchmen universe, he looks at Superman and gets inspired. He gets freaking inspired. He's been staying there the whole time just, yes, I am a cold, unfeeling scientist. I am not human anymore. I have no connections. I will make this one little change here just to see what happens, because that's just the character that I am. And he actually feels human again. Superman reminds him of the people he used to care about. And he actually makes Dr. Manhattan go, what have I done? He doesn't actually say those words, but that's basically what he's come to realize. And he resets the universe. He goes back, restarts the entire universe, and it is a gorgeous set of panels. Because they come in here and they just erase everything. Everything is just completely erased. And then when you see the Big Bang come out of the darkness, it's not just like the universe being born, it's Superman's rocket flying off of Krypton. That is the Big Bang that has created this new multiverse. And I love that. Because it goes back to, yes, Superman is important. He's the beacon of hope and truth that all universes need. All of this, and I don't just mean the DC universe, but I mean all comics, sprung up from that moment. That was the Big Bang of comics. Superman's rocket flying off of Krypton. So, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that that's exactly what happened here, where Superman's rocket was the very first thing that happened in the entire universe now, but what I'm saying is, it's meant to be a metaphor. I really dig that metaphor. But then you see his rocket landing, and you see his parents finding him again. But then Dr. Manhattan goes back and he revisits another thing they changed in this timeline. One of the other things they altered was he saw Alan Scott reaching out for the Green Lantern. Alan Scott in the old DC continuity was the first superhero that existed. And Dr. Manhattan, just out of curiosity, moved that lantern just a few inches away. So Alan Scott couldn't grab it in time to save himself, and he died. And so there was no Justice Society of America. There were no superheroes back during World War II. None of that stuff ever happened. Dr. Manhattan goes, alright, move that back a couple inches. Now Alan Scott does grab that lantern, and he does become Green Lantern. And the Justice Society is formed. And that has a ripple effect from there on out, because it then goes to Superman when he was a kid, and you see in the New 52 continuity, you see his dad telling him, listen, nobody has ever seen anything like you. If we let you go out there as a superhero, who knows what's going to happen? I'm sorry, son, but you can't do it. And now, because of this change, you see what has now happened, which is his dad telling him, listen, the world has seen stuff like you before. I remember it from back when I was a kid, back in World War II. And we need that again. We need someone like you right now to inspire hope and truth and justice and all that stuff. And so Superman becomes Superboy when he was a kid in Smallville, and because he was out there being a superhero, he goes and he saves his parents from the car crash that ended up killing them in the New 52 continuity. And I freaking love that sequence, because to me, that image of Superman saving his parents and them going, oh my goodness, look at this uniform you're wearing, look at this costume, look at this cape, oh, this is great, you're a superhero right now, we're both alive, everything worked out. That to me is like that perfect moment to put into this book to say, yeah, here's some joy back in the DC universe. Here's some hope. Here's some love. Here's all those positive emotions. We're just gonna dump them all out here into the DC universe. Yeah, it's all back in there right now. That to me was like that perfect moment to go, we have now changed mistakes. Because to me, killing off Superman's parents in the New 52 continuity, that was a huge mistake. I hated that, and I am aware that in some of the older continuities, some of the older revisions, yeah, Superman's dad did die when he was younger because he died of a heart attack, and that like taught Superman a lesson of, oh, I can't save everyone. Even with all my powers, there's things that I can't do. That was an important lesson to teach Superman, but I still always liked both of his parents being alive. So in the New 52, when they came in here and they killed both of them off, and not even with the heart attack thing, just with, you know, a reckless car crash. Just in a thing that taught Superman, like, no lessons, no morals, no values from that. Just, you know, he's a young kid now with no parents. I hated that. Because we keep talking about how the New 52 was trying to make everything darker and grimmer and taking all the hope out of this. I kept looking at them killing off both of Superman's parents when he was a kid, just like, that's Batman. That's his thing. Yes, I know that they're both named Martha, but don't get them mixed up. They're two totally different things in here. I hated that. That just always drove me nuts about the New 52. So them coming in here and just going, that didn't happen now. They're safe, and they're both still alive at the end of this book. That's great. That was fantastic. However, it continues rippling out from there, and then you see, oh, Superman, he's still outnumbered by all these other superhumans that have come from all across the world to stop him. And then just out of nowhere, the Justice Society and the new Legion of Superheroes arrive on the scene. The past, the present, and the future, all there to save the DC Universe. It was an amazing splash page. And I love looking over at the Justice Society over there. And yeah, the Legion, it's Bendis's new Legion over there. Which, okay, fine, great, whatever. It's the new Legion. Great, works. But I love looking at the Justice Society in there and just going, that's Jeff Johns' Justice Society. That's Jeff Johns' JSA in there. That's them, like, one for one. It's those exact characters in there. Every single one of them right there. I love seeing them pop back up in here. And at the end of this book, you've got Superman listening to the news, and they're talking about all the terrible things that happen during Doomsday Clock, and how the JSA is just fixing that stuff. Like, no problem. Yeah, all taken care of. And they're fixing it with, like, understanding. They're fixing it with compassion. With positive superhero stuff, with actual feelings and thoughts that superheroes should have, not even with their actions. You know, like a superhuman needs help, he needs to get better. So Dr. Midnight has a clinic for that, and they're treating them over there. They're not going out and punching something to save the day. No, no, no. This guy who needs help is coming to our clinic, he's gonna get that help that he needs. Great. All these accusations are being made about the Superman project, about these fake superhumans that are being created. Alan Scott just steps up and goes, I lived through this once, I ain't living through it again. The JSA are gonna be there to make sure that all this works out. Oh my goodness, just, again, sorry to keep doing this. I know that sounds terrible in the audio, but that's basically what it is. It's the JSA, this thing that was missing from the DC Universe, just popping back up and going, yeah, we got this, it's all resolved. Just, it's no problem for us, just dusting that off our hands. Easy peasy. Now there are two other things that happen at the end of this, and I'm going to skip ahead to the last one that happens because the next to last one that happens has a lot of stuff that needs to be dissected in it. But the last one that happens is that Dr. Manhattan returns to the Watchmen universe and he uses all of his powers, all of his remaining energy to basically restore the world, undo all the destruction that was created, and you see people are now actually kind of feeling hope. But he also takes this child that belonged to a marionette and mime, and he was going to basically now raise it infusing it with the last bits of his power, and he named it Clark, and he basically raised it to have morals and values so that it can be a better hero than he ever was, because his universe was missing a Superman and it needed a Superman. So he created one for their universe to help guide it along the right path after he was gone. And I am so torn about this. I am so torn about this because, yes, I love that the entire purpose of Doomsday Clock is that the reason why the New 52 lost hope and friendship and love and compassion and all the joy that the old DC universe had was because the Watchmen universe was so dark and gritty that it overlapped into the DC universe and altered it. I love that the finale of this is, oh my goodness, the hope of the DC universe. The hope of Superman and the Justice League and the JSA and all of them. By the way, I'm fully aware that I've been slurring my societies in here and been saying societies this entire time. I apologize. Yeah, I love that the big message at the end of this is that the DC universe is full of so much love and hope. It fought back and then overlapped the Watchmen universe, so now the Watchmen universe is on the right path. The Watchmen universe is now not the dark, gritty place anymore. As far as messages about the industry go, I love that. But, you remember all that stuff I said at the beginning of this about how people do have problems with this book because it's taking, Alan Moore's invention that he got screwed on, and how DC has been just basically using this over and over and over again, despite the fact that the original creator would not want used over and over and over again. The one thing that I kind of was hoping here the whole time was, okay, but as long as you don't really make any changes to the Watchmen universe, it's good. As long as you don't come in here and really mix any of that up too much, then hey, great. This is a huge mix-up. This is a huge change that happens to the Watchmen universe. So, on the one hand, speaking in terms of a metaphor about the importance of Superman and the importance of the DC universe, it's a great message at the end. But speaking in a business sense about, we all know what DC does with the Watchmen comics and how Alan Moore has been screwed over on this. It's rough. It's a hard pill to swallow on this one. It's one of those things where it's a good thing, but I can't ignore the sleazy history of the business practices going into Watchmen when I read this. I was able to ignore it this entire time up until this moment, and that's when it got to that point where, I couldn't. I couldn't ignore it anymore, and I had to kind of go, oh, poor Alan Moore. You got screwed over hard on this book. Another thing about the whole Watchmen relationship with DC Comics, I mean in the metaphorical sense, I mean in the business sense. When I went into this, as I said, a lot of people had problems with this, but I looked at it and just went, well, as long as you don't tamper too much. At the end of this thing, when you've got the new Rorschach in there, just going, the old Rorschach was this, but now I'm Rorschach, and I'm going to make Rorschach something about this. I'm going to change what it means. I just kept looking at that like, ooh, coming in here and saying that now this new character is going to be the new Rorschach and you're going to completely change, Rorschach. That's kind of tampering too much. That's kind of tampering with the business side of this a little bit too much. This is you basically flat out going, okay, and now we're just going to completely take that Rorschach figure away from you, Alan Moore. Yep, that is completely ours now, and we're going to do what we want with that. Yep, okay now. Again, it's not that it's bad writing or anything like that. It's just, I had been able to avoid thinking about a lot of the sleazy things that went on with Watchmen behind the scenes for a while, and this is when it kind of got to that moment where I went, I can't ignore that anymore. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the other thing that happened at the end of this, which is that basically Jeff Johns got to come in here and just wax poetically about the DC multiverse. And there are two guys out there who can always make me get really emotional about the DC multiverse, and it's Grant Morrison and Jeff Johns. And this was another thing that really saved all this at the end, that really turned this book all around for me at the end, is that basically Jeff Johns was just allowed to go nuts with this. Jeff Johns was just allowed to come in here and just go, okay, multiverse this, here, let me explain this about the multiverse, let me have this big splash page here about this thing. Yeah, I love it. And he didn't just come in here and explain the history of the DC multiverse. He explained the new history of the DC multiverse. and how it was going to keep changing forever and ever. And again, it's one of those things that you look at and it's just a metaphor about comics. Because Dr. Manhattan, he didn't just look at the past and go, okay, here are all the big crises that have happened in the past. We've seen that. We've seen this happen a lot in other books. Even recently, over in Scott Snyder's Justice League book, they've talked about the previous crises multiple times in that book, which, as I said, I was kind of hesitant going into this book here at the end. And one of the other reasons was that I feel like Scott Snyder's Justice League has kind of lapped it. I don't mean in terms of writing quality. I just meant, oh my goodness, Superman facing off with Dr. Manhattan. That's the biggest thing we could imagine. Well, over in Scott Snyder's Justice League book, we've got, you know, these 4 big things that are the embodiments of all the energies that make up the universe, and that's the biggest thing that we've ever seen. And then the Justice League was able to beat them, and then it turns out that there was someone even higher than them, and now we have to go and fight them. Yeah, it feels almost like, in terms of threat levels, Scott Snyder's Justice League has ended up lapping Doomsday Clock like 3 or 4 times at this point. So I was looking over at Dr. Manhattan like, why are you even important? Why? I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about Perpetua over here. You're nothing at this point. But yeah, we've been seeing all this stuff in all these books recently about the history of the multiverse. So I looked at this and went, okay, well, they're doing that again. That's nice. That's nice that they're doing that again. But then at the end of this, he goes, and then in 2020, this happened. Oh, okay, well, that's talking about the stuff in like Snyder's Justice League. Okay, that makes sense in there. That's fine. And then he goes, and in 2026, this will happen. And I actually got frustrated there for a second. I actually got really frustrated because I went, we've been building up to this for so long. We've been building up to this book for so long, and here at the end of this, you're coming in to advertise your next big event, and it's 6 or 7 years away? That's how far you're advertising? Oh my God. I do not, that it really just kind of tainted the end of this book for me. But then it kept going. And then they said, okay, and then 2028, this is going to happen. And then in 2030, this is going to happen. And then in this year, this is going to happen. And then in 2336, this is going to happen. And then in 3025, this is going to happen. And then I went, okay, the 2026 one, that probably is going to be a thing that happens. But this wasn't an advertisement for it. This wasn't them coming in here and going, get hyped for the next big thing. This was them coming in here and going, there will always be reboots because we always have to exist. There will always be reboots because Superman always has to exist. And here's all the different futures showing you all the different times in the next 1,000 years when we are going to keep rebooting Superman because the world always needs Superman. Awesome. I'm okay with it. I turned completely around on that one thing within the span of like 2 panels. Because I looked at this and I just went, yeah man, we do. And you are going to always keep rebooting this universe. Fine, because you need to do that. That's just how DC Comics works. And this was kind of like a big mission statement from DC here at the end. I'm just coming in here and going, this is why we have to keep doing this. This is why it's important. And we're gonna keep doing this. Because Superman will always exist. That will always be a thing. So great. I love that they decided to do that here at the end. Plus, Jeff Johns is a super creative guy. He laid out some super creative stuff there at the end. Like, I listened to some of the big creative pitches that he was throwing out there at the end. Like, oh, Superman is going to go on a mission across the multiverse to find Batman's original daughter so that she can come back and save him. And I just looked at that and went, oh my goodness, that's a storyline I want to read. I'm gonna have to wait 8 years, but I want to read it. But my favorite one is the one that happens in 2030, because that was the one that I looked at and made me realize, oh, these aren't actually real. He's not actually mapping anything out. He's just pitching wildly into the wind to see what happens. He's basically just trying to say, listen, this is just, like vaguely what might happen. The important thing is that a reboot will always be here. There will always be a reboot, so these characters can always be here. That's what he was trying to say. He wasn't trying to come in here and actually map anything out. And the one that made me realize that was the one in 2030 when I looked at and I went, oh, that ain't happening. Oh, no. Because the pitch was Superman would go on a quest across the multiverse with Thor himself and a green Goliath who was stronger than Doomsday. I just looked at that and went, okay, Thor's in the public domain. Thor is an actual mythological figure. Anyone can say Thor. But the Green Goliath is Hulk. Green Goliath is 100% Hulk. And I just looked at that and just went, I love that Jeff Johns came in here and just went, all right, Marvel, DC, I'm giving you both 10 years to fix your I'm giving you 10 years to stop your squabbling and actually make up and play nice and give us a freaking crossover all over again. Yeah, there are only a few weeks left in this decade. The 2010s are almost over. Do you guys realize that the 2010s will be the first decade since the 60s where these companies have not crossed over? In the 70s, you had Superman meet Spider-Man. In the 80s, you had the Teen Titans meet the X-Men. In the 90s, you had the big Marvel vs. DC event. Then 2003, you had JLA Avengers, and that was it. That was 17 years ago. And we haven't gotten anything since then. I know a lot of people out there are going to say, oh yeah, thanks Disney. This started 7 years before Disney got involved. And Disney is fine with Marvel crossing over with other things. Under Disney, Marvel has crossed over with Fortnite and Attack on Titan. Alright? Disney is not exactly known for not letting their toys play with other people. As long as they can make some money off of it, they will gladly let their property show up in other things. I mean, Disney will let Mickey Mouse, Donald, and Goofy be in a weird J-pop anime Square Enix video game. They don't care. As long as they make some cash off of it, they do not care. It's the people at the top. Joe Quesada, I can't confirm this, but there's a lot of rumors that he has basically told everyone at Marvel, I never want to see anybody here cross over with DC. And apparently, even after he left as editor-in-chief, a lot of the people who were loyal to that idea stuck around. But Dan DiDio has actually said in interviews, I never want to cross over with Marvel again. This is not the big companies. It's solely just the guys at the top just going, no, we don't want to do this. And it just drives me nuts that literally everyone underneath those guys want to do this. I have seen creators on Twitter talking to each other, just going, hey man, wouldn't it be great if we could cross over? I saw Jason Aaron and Scott Snyder saying, wouldn't it be great if we could have the Avengers meet the Justice League again? The writer of Avengers and the writer of Justice League want to make this happen. Solely just the guys at the top will not let this happen. And I don't even mean like the big faceless board. I mean like I can name names. Like we know specifically the people involved who do not want their company crossing over. And this is another thing, it's just like Wally West. It just shocks me that you've got Jeff Johns over there, loves Wally West, loves all these legacy characters, wants to see Marvel and DC crossing over, but you just got Dan DiDio up there. And it's got Dan DiDio like, nope, no kid heroes, no legacy heroes, make it grim and dark, get rid of all the love, get rid of Wally West, and definitely no Marvel. It's just driving me insane. It's getting to that point where I'm like jonesing for this, alright? I didn't realize how badly I needed this until I read that moment in Doomsday Clock and I was like, Thor and a Green Goliath. Just let us have it. Just let us have it. I kept expecting that to like pop up all the way over my head again. Didn't work out. But the important thing is just let us have it. Everybody wants this to happen. Everybody wants Marvel to cross over with DC again. Everybody wants it. Just let it happen. But there you have it. Those are my thoughts on Doomsday Clock number 12. Sorry that we were all over the place this week, but hey man, when I read a book that I'm really excited about, I kind of jump all over the place like a little kid who just can't contain their energy because they want to talk about this thing. And that's how Doomsday Clock number 12 made me feel. And considering that with issue number 11, I was super hesitant with how this issue would wrap up, that really speaks to the quality of this issue. That really speaks to how freaking good this issue was. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as I mentioned, we do have a Patreon, and every single month we do an exclusive episode of Comic Class for just the patrons. And this week we're going to be doing an episode about about Last Night on Earth. There's way too many nights over at DC Comics. Batman Last Night on Earth, because that also wrapped up this week. Well, a lot of stuff really wrapped up this week. We had Doomsday Clock number 12. We had the entire run of Snyder's Batman series essentially wrap up this week with Last Night on Earth. We also had Tom King's Batman run wrap up. We also had Jason Aaron's Thor run wrap up. It's like 4 books that kind of define the decade came out with 2 weeks left in the decade. That's kind of amazing to me. It's almost like it was planned. There's no way that this was a coincidence. It's just too weird. But thank you guys very much for tuning in. Come back next time. Bye.